Another day, another Acolyte controversy, or so it would seem. The show is now just 2 days away. I'm very excited to cover this show. I'm going to be doing weekly reviews. We're going to break down everything in it. And as Ahsoka says, good or bad, firsts are always memorable. The discourse is going to be entertaining, I'm sure. And with this show, there is always something to talk about. Oftentimes, not in the story itself, but out of universe. And what's really gotten some online spaces talking are comments made by Charlie Barnett, Jedi Knight Yord Fandar. The cast and crew have been discussing what we can expect from the show, their various characters, their influences, what they love most about Star Wars, and he slipped up. Instead of saying Luke blowing up the Death Star, he said Anakin blew it up. He said it on 2 separate occasions. And this has erupted on social media as this big controversy. How could he make such a big mistake? The show is going to be terrible, all of that kind of thing. And here's my take. I don't really care that actors don't know Star Wars lore. Is it a pretty huge mistake? Yes. Is it a mistake you would have made if you've seen the movies? Probably not, unless it was just a slip up. But it's not like Leslye Headland or the writers of the show were the ones saying it. That's the key difference. It's the directors, the producers, and the writers that have to know Star Wars lore, not the actors. Many of them do seem to know Star Wars quite well, but this wouldn't be the first time actors have slipped up, or just don't know that much about the Star Wars universe they're acting in. They don't need to, they're actors. They're there to perform the role. If they can say the lines, do the movements, the action, the choreography, that's all that counts. Actors don't have to be Star Wars lore experts. Similar things were asked of Temuera Morrison before the Book of Boba Fett. Granted, he's been on Attack of the Clones, Mando, and he does know quite a lot about Jango and Boba Fett, and even he said, when you asked me about deep Star Wars lore, he said he didn't read the comics, and he put his hands up and said, I don't know that much. And it's the same with Harrison Ford, and plenty of other actors who've been in Star Wars. So I really don't care if actors know that much about Star Wars, especially characters who aren't even in this show. If he knows about his own character Yord Fandar and how to act it, and Leslye Headland knows Star Wars well and we know she is a big fan of the expanded universe, then that's all that counts. I think it's been overblown. He also slipped up again. He said the Jedi have not been featured in recent Disney Star Wars films and shows, despite them being prominently shown in the sequel trilogy, Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, even Boba Fett and Mando. So yeah, he slipped up. He might not be the biggest fan, but it's not nearly as consequential as if Leslye Headland, or Dave Filoni, or Kathleen Kennedy, or Rain Roberts had said it. And a third statement fans disagree with is when he confidently stated the Jedi are portrayed as godlike beings in the movies, especially George Lucas's 6 films. The reason I disagree with this is because time and time again we're shown the Jedi can do a lot of wrong. Even Qui-Gon says this in The Phantom Menace years before the Clone Wars and even Order 66. So you can make the argument this guy doesn't really understand Star Wars too well, but who cares? He didn't write or direct the show, and I get it. He's out in the forefront marketing and representing the show, but I don't think this is indicative of the quality of the series and what it's going to be like. Charlie Barnett goes on to say this: one of the things that was the most terrifying into stepping into that position of Jedi. We hadn't seen a lot of Jedi in the films or even TV shows.
What?
Again, I don't know how he can say this if he's ever seen Star Wars, so whatever. And then he says, so returning to that storyline and reinvesting in it was daunting because, from where I was growing up from the films that I was seeing, they were better than could be. They were the utmost and could do no wrong. It was kind of this godlike nature. So getting to see more of the personality, seeing a little deeper root into them was terrifying. And again, the whole point of the prequel trilogy was the downfall, the hubris of the Jedi. But like I say, it doesn't matter, he's just an actor. So let's hold our horses, wait till Tuesday, and if there are blatant, apparent mistakes in the show, we'll talk about them then. In other news for the Acolyte, we have a new teaser trailer which shows Jackie Lon fighting the Sith with 2 green lightsabers. You can definitely feel Dave Filoni's influence on this show. Jackie Lon is truly evoking Ahsoka from the Clone Wars with her double green lightsaber, fighting in Jarkai with both weapons. I suspect one of these is from one of the Jedi who died, and Jackie is giving it all she's got. And Leslye Headland has now finally confirmed they are Sith. A lot of us were wondering, is this show going to step on the toes of episode 1, ruin our perception of the rule of 2, the Sith being in hiding until further down the line in The Phantom Menace? Well, Leslye says they're not Sith cultists, they're not some kind of generic dark side force user, they are indeed Sith. This kind of makes me nervous, I'm not gonna lie, but I'm giving it a chance. they could find a way to make it work. Bear in mind she says there are some characters from the expanded universe coming into canon. Imagine if this means Darth Tenebrous in the shadows, young Plagueis, and as I've said time and again, this helmeted Sith is their apprentice, and May is the acolyte to him. This is something that kind of gave me a chuckle and raised an eyebrow. They're already talking about how we might see the failed Star Wars hotel in the show, the Galactic Star Cruiser which has already shut down. Are they going to reuse it? The Halcyon, which has appeared also in comics and other canon material and stories. There's some speculation it might feature in the Acolyte. While Disney's history with Star Wars has definitely seen its fair shares of ups and downs, there is likely no bigger blemish on their record than the short-lived Galactic Star Cruiser, the Star Wars themed hotel that looked to offer guests an immersive 2-night stay to live out their Star Wars story. But on top of the hefty price of admission, it was also set between episode 8 and 9, and some fans didn't like the fact it was entirely sequel trilogy based. And it would be an understatement to say the perception of the hotel quickly turned sour. And despite some fans enjoying it and there were definitely some positive reviews, the overall experience was poorly received by the general public. It closed its doors 18 months after starting operations. Recently, the hotel has resurfaced following a very detailed 4-hour video by Jenny Nicholson titled The Spectacular Failure of the Star Wars Hotel. The video went into great depth, talking about the troubled history of the hotel and her own personal experience of the 2-night stay. We've also seen some employees of the hotel come out and say their truth. And to be honest, the only way it's surviving is through Star Wars lore in various canon comics and books. Is it about to make the jump to the small screen in The Acolyte? I don't know if you guys heard this, but they're already making an Acolyte themed insertion in the Old Republic game. The game is set way before, but you can use May's aesthetic, and they've also announced a Kelnaka one-shot comic. So they're trying to diversify the outreach of the Acolyte, and given the $118 million budget, plus the fact this is what Disney and Lucasfilm hope to be the next flagship Star Wars show, are they going to make the Halcyon part of the Acolyte story? During this time period of the High Republic, the ship could be relatively new, and it could appear in a scene and be an important part of the story in some capacity. There is an ironic side to this, but you know, even if it does feature, it's not going to be the biggest part of this murder mystery story. The Acolyte is said to be self-contained, not pulling from pre-existing characters, but some reviewers are saying that's already not true. But what do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts on everything we spoke about in the comments down below. Just a couple of Acolyte tidbits, we're now just 2 days away. Are you excited? Looking forward to it? Let me know. I have some very exciting Star Wars lore content coming up, and we're also going to be talking a lot about the prequel trilogy and the Jedi, as well as covering the latest Acolyte episodes and reviewing them as they drop. So make sure you're subscribed and stay tuned. And if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video. May the Force be with you, always.